So now we've entered the stage of Charlie Kirk's tragic murder in which we're trying to figure out why the murderer did it. Were they liberal or conservative? And trying to spin our wheels to make sure that whatever the reasons are, that it's our opponents who are in fact being blamed for it. Now, we're going to basically at this point have completely left aside the fact that there's a tremendous tragedy involved. Full stop, regardless of what side of the aisle you happen to be. In particular, because he had a family. There are children who are now going to have to live the trauma for the rest of their lives of the fact that their father was killed in a televised way. In other words, if they ever want to see it happen, I guess they can. As someone who lost a parent to a violent act, I can tell you it's traumatizing. To have it happen as a child is particularly traumatizing. And at the very least, when it happened in my family, it wasn't nationally televised. I can't imagine what these children are going through, but notice we as a people don't really seem to care. And that seems to be the thing that sticks out the most about all of this is how very revealing this event has been about who we are. I expect politicians to be pretty awful. You can't really trust what they say because everything that they say, you see, they flip flop back and forth depending on whether or not they think it's going to get them votes. So I can presume, I work under the assumption that for Democrats, as soon as they heard about this, although they're all mourning it, I don't think that they are celebrating. I think they went, oh, crap. This is going to be something that Republicans are going to use to bludgeon us over the head with. And I think that there's a good chance that a fair number of Republicans who may never have even really heard of him or weren't really part of his social circle who went, awesome, sad, but great, we can use this to bludgeon Democrats. And they have, right? We have seen this happening ad nauseum with Republican politicians coming out and saying, like, this is Democrats' fault. This is all liberals. We should be deporting liberals, so on and so forth. But that I expect. I shouldn't, but I do. But where it gets really concerning is if you look at us and our response. So if you look at people's socials, they are really very revealing about who we are. MAGA supporters who are saying exactly what their politicians are saying, which are liberals are all a bunch of radical leftists and, arrest them, deport them. And in some cases, they're calling for violence. And then we have liberals who are saying, well, he made his bed, let him lay in it. Again, ignoring the fact that this is an actual human life, but not just, even if you don't care about him in the slightest, all the people who cared about him who now suffer. And I guess our response has to be, well, they chose to care about him, so I guess they get to lay in that bed too. And this does not fit well, by the way, with liberals who we say we care about other people, we respect other people's rights, we respect their right to freedom of speech, even if we disagree with them. In fact, we would lay down our lives for that until we find ourselves going, well, but this person deserved what he got. Those things don't match. And it makes it clear that there's a tremendous hypocrisy involved. And the fact that we are all trying to find some way to blame the other side for it, right? So clearly, before there was any information out, Republicans were like, this is a liberal killer. They're all a bunch of liberal nut jobs. Go get him. Go get him, President Trump. And liberals, of course, are now hard spinning, trying to find some way to blame Groypers and say that it was some sort of split within amongst conservatives and amongst MAGA. And we still do not know for sure. There's still information coming out about it. But the real question is should that be our primary concern? Should our primary concern be finding some way to blame the other side for this? The fact of the matter is one instance of some sort of political violence is not an indicator of the fact that that whole political movement or that whole side is itself extremist and radicalized. It just doesn't work like that. We have seen acts of violence from people from particular philosophical or political perspectives, from every perspective, literally ranging from Christians who have engaged in violence against people to Buddhists who have engaged in violence against people to people on the left, people on the right. This does not mean that all of the members of that group or the majority or that philosophy itself or that ideology or that politics itself is itself radicalizing. You have to start looking for patterns. And so then we just simply have to ask ourselves, is there a pattern here? And some of you are going to say, yes, all the people who did violence, all these leftists who tried to assassinate Trump, though one of them was trying to assassinate Trump or Biden. interestingly enough, but you're going to say it's all them, and people on the left are going to say, oh, look, but all of these people on the right. And what that should actually be showing us is there is a trend, and that trend is an increase in violence about people's politics here in the United States. Again, period, full stop. It's not about being on the left or the right. We're seeing an increase across the spectrum. At the very least, the increase is in threats. All politicians, right? People in Congress, for example, are getting death threats constantly. So it's us. It's not just the politicians who are stoking the flames. Don't get me wrong. Donald Trump, 100%, 100%, there's no question about it, uses a language of violence. Some of you in MAGA are saying, no, he's not. What are you talking about? Of course he is. He literally changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War. The man literally says to beat up protesters. He tried to have our military act against protesters in his first term. The man encourages violence. That now you might like that, but don't pretend that he doesn't. But those of us on the left can't pretend that there isn't a language of violence coming out of the left as well. Now, this is not my trying to blame one group or the other. This is my saying that clearly something is deeply broken about our country. When someone is murdered, a parent is murdered, their small children now have to live with that trauma of seeing it nationally televised. And our main concern is not for them, but how it might make us look politically and how we can use this event to our political advantage. It makes us all hypocrites, and it might reveal that we are becoming the monsters of this story. So my heart goes out to everyone who is impacted by this, certainly to his family. That's who we should be thinking about. For those of you who feel some connection to Charlie Kirk and it hurts for you, my heart goes out to you. I do think that we need to recognize at the same time that there are people who are saying, oh, well, this is the George Floyd. It isn't. And I don't mean because it doesn't matter to people on the right. What I mean is the George Floyd event was one in which it was the system of the people in power acting against one man. And in this case, Charlie Kirk is someone who is not on the fringes of that power. It is a Republican in the presidency. It is a Republican Congress. For all intents and purposes, it is a Republican Supreme Court. The majority of governorships are Republican. The majority of state legislatures are Republican. So Charlie Kirk, we cannot say, oh, was a victim of a system that itself is against Republicans and conservatives when they control almost every level of government. But that doesn't mean that the people who care about him or the people who identify with him are not also experiencing pain and fear. And if we, liberals, are people who claim to care, well, it's easy to care about people who agree with you. But if you want to show people that you actually match your rubber to the road, then you show care for the people who disagree with you, or at the very least, their grieving families. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I hope that your day and week and all of our time together gets a good deal better. Thanks so much for watching.